All right, hello everyone. Welcome to
Woo!
okay. Welcome to the semi-finals Pickems stream. This time covering the potentials as well later on, ID 53 and 54. But starting off here, I have the 6WC host themselves, the best Singaporean in 6-digit at one point in history, Camille Crayola. Good morning and hello.
Incredible glaze from you, Foxy. Very pleased to be here. It's my first time doing this year. Did a bunch of it last year. Took a step back this year to let our other casters shine. But glad to be back in the Pick'ems booth. But yeah, I mean, nothing much from me. Really looking forward to it.
Glad to hear. And as well, we have Timber, who's in here for the first time as well. Hello.
Hello. Yeah, it's first time as well for me. And it's going to be also the last because next week we won't have a Pick'em stream.
If we get 5,000 likes and like $10,000, we'll do it.
That's true. If we
Yep.
are able to be persuaded by money.
Yep.
You know, like $20 is $20, man. Just like
You heard it.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun trying to predict, I guess, all these coming up matches. This weekend is looking stacked. Definitely some really close matches that are on the schedule for this weekend, and I think it's gonna be fun.
yeah, I mean, starting us off, we have the Canada-Kazakhstan match, seed 9 against seed 10, two very close seeds that have been playing insanely well in the past few weeks, especially Canada, who managed to do a seeding upset, beating Poland despite being seed 8, still a very impressive score, with their carries Herald and Kaidori kind of pulling them ahead in these matches, especially in the Philippines match, where they managed to get 4 points against a team that is thought to be near untouchable. And on the other side, you have Kazakhstan, who's gone up against some pretty strong teams as well. They've gone up against Ukraine in round of 16, where they managed to get 3 points, which against a team like Ukraine is a very impressive score. And also managing to very handily beat Lithuania and Germany in the losers bracket last week. So both teams very close overall. We can see this in their stats here as well, looking at these. Some have better scores, some have worse scores. But overall, pretty close, and I feel like just starting off and just having the hope that it might finally happen, I'm gonna be personally putting 6-5 here.
Okay. Me personally, when I look at these two rosters in comparison, I mean, it's a real doozy, right? I think where Kazakhstan is concerned, Kazakhstan throughout or going into the 6-digit World Cup this year, was looking very lopsided. It looked like Aaron's carry throughout, but I think throughout the course of their run in this tournament, they've a lot of their supporting cast really has shined. Namely, players like Top 4 Guy, looking at Swarty, looking at Remo Pochka. And I think across the board, Kazakhstan has really been doing a good job proving themselves. But I think historically, a lot of these countries that seem to be very lopsided in the earlier rounds, I'm thinking like last year's Argentinian roster, right? They sort of begin to fall off when it comes to the higher SR, where the skill cap becomes more pronounced. And for that reason, I very much fear how well Kazakhstan will scale moving into the later rounds, especially given this semifinals round is very, very demonical when it comes to a whole bevy of skill sets. Meanwhile, on the left side of Team Canada, if we are going based off carry power, name power, right? We have Harold versus Arong. That's sort of the tension, the binary tension going into a matchup like this. And the thing is, Harold, I think, scales a lot better into this SR. But at the same time, I think Arong's going into this sort of middle ground SR for himself is probably gonna look to be more consistent than Harold, at least when it comes to an accuracy standpoint. So I think both countries at the end of the day have their ups, have their downs. But me personally, I mean, I can't see. I think going for a Canada victory here is a much safer bet, just because we know the players from Team Canada a lot better, at least from the international scene. And because I don't know enough about the Kazakh roster going into the later rounds, I can't help but think that this is a matchup that at most goes 6-4 for me. But it's either 6-4, 6-3. Timper, why don't you talk a bit so I can think?
Yeah, I actually had 6-4 as well, because I think Kazakhstan does have the skills in their team to at least take that many points. Definitely on the more side of the DTs from their qualifier scores. Definitely, Canada did have a really good run in DT, definitely in the quarterfinals, as you could see. But I think Kazakhstan still has a little bit of an edge there, definitely on like the higher stars maybe. Because their qualifiers was just really good, and normally qualifiers is more of a star rating that is later in the pool, later in the tournament. So I think it's also going to be 6-4, but I don't think it's going to be going to tiebreaker. I just don't
I think it goes to
Kazakhstan. I just don't think Kazakhstan has the longevity in a match to get the later picks towards them. Every match has been towards them except for that Ukraine. You could see that in the last maps. It was just very hard for them to get a good score going, just because they just didn't have those filler players on the later picks that they're just less comfortable on. So I was also going for 6-4.
Yeah, I think the consensus here on the floor is that this is a victory for Canada, but I think Kazakhstan will be able to put out a good fight all in all. And there's a lot we don't know about this Kazakh roster, right, Foxy? Do you want to close this off?
Yeah, I mean, this Kazakh roster, they've kind of popped off. I'm gonna be real. We like at the start of the tournament, I don't think anyone was expecting the Kazakh roster to make it this far, because they do kind of look like a one-trick pony with airings, and that's kind of it. But the rest of their team, players like Swordy and Remorka, have been insanely good. So that's kind of why I was thinking tiebreaker. But yeah, I do have to agree that in the later picks, namely the gimmick picks, once we start getting to those, because this match is gonna be just raw mechanics for a lot of it, thanks to players like Herald and Kaidori against Airings and Swordy all liking mechanics over gimmick. And then later on, obviously, gimmick more so towards Canada with Nixie and Falba on their side. So yeah, I agree that this is probably 6-4. And I think it's kind of a safe bet. This is very much a Canada victory regardless, though, no matter what happens.
If Kazakhstan has a good run in the early stage of the match, it might go towards them if they do have a good run on those mechanics picks, and they just that Canada just has a bad day. So it could also go 6 the other way, but I think there's just a bigger chance of Canada winning here.
Yeah, I think our consensus is 6-4, unless anyone has anything to say here. This looks like a very cut and clear decision on our end.
I think we can move on.
Yeah, moving on to ID50, which is gonna be Taiwan against Brazil. And this match has a lot less to kind of talk about. This match has a much more one-sided victory, in my opinion, thanks to just seeding-wise, but also overall player-wise, looking at the scores here.
Yeah, not really much for me to comment. I think Taiwan dropping to losers bracket is the Taiwan is the big menace in the losers bracket at this juncture, right? And I think any country going up against Taiwan right now would be remiss and would be for lack of a better term, pissing their pants right now. I think Taiwan doesn't really have a lot of weaknesses. I think their biggest weakness is hard rock, and in that sense, I can see Brazil maybe stealing a few points here and there. But I mean, this Taiwanese roster is so incredibly scary. There's nothing I can see Brazil really going for apart from the hard rocks, and even on the hard rocks, Taiwan isn't any stranger.
Yeah, the Taiwan is just a really good roster this year. I definitely think they're gonna win as well. I gave Brazil 3 points, just because on the other mods, except for the no mods that Taiwan are just really good on and the hard rocks. I think Brazil might have a chance to steal some points, as you said, but I don't know if it's gonna be 2 or 3. It could go either way, but it's definitely Taiwan that's gonna be winning here.
I feel like the few points that I'm giving is because of the speed picks. Like you look at their quarterfinals performances, and they just outmatched Taiwan in every sense. So from that aspect, I can see speed being abusable. But at the same time, the Taiwanese roster that played in quarterfinals is a limited roster.
Yeah, I mean, one more thing as well, right? Even though we are getting into the speed, something that I think Brazil's gonna have happen is that they're gonna start getting skill cap, because last year, their entire roster ranked up due to that roster just being purely insane. And this roster has kept up the legacy a tiny bit, but they've been a little behind, and especially at this SR, where I think it's mostly just gonna be Sepia, Braya, and possibly Jotampa, with the rest starting to lag behind. It's kind of just gonna be a skill cap abuse, especially with things like Fremod being open for Taiwan, who has Murarachi, who is arguably the best mechanics player in terms of easy. I'm not sure on that call, at least not in the tournament.
Yes. I mean, Murashi is in easy WC for Taiwan, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, okay. Because I was thinking, right, the Chilean player that was also good at easy, but between those two, yeah, Murarachi is a demon, and yeah, I personally just think Taiwan can kind of just go into anything besides raw speed, and they're gonna be completely fine on this pool and against Brazil here.
Yeah. Nothing much from me. Nothing more from me.
I think we're gonna go an average 6-2.
Yeah, I think just going 6-2 is fair here. Yeah. But moving on to ID51, we're gonna be having Ukraine against Poland, and I'm gonna let Timber take this one away for a little bit. This one's gonna be fun.
I think this is gonna be the closest match of the weekend. Just because of how close these two teams are in terms of skill. With Poland having played more of the quarterfinals pool than Ukraine has. I was really confused for a second, but that's the Indonesian flag on the left side. I was like, wait, that's no, it's Indonesian. Indonesia is just so strong, which is also probably why they lost 6-0. But they did outperform Poland in some of the, in one of the picks at least, the hard rock. And I think that's also one of the skills that they're going to have more of than Poland, which is the hard rock gimmick. And I think it's going to be very close between the two, with Poland being also another force to be reckoned with, beating Australia and Japan in the quarterfinals. I think it might go to tiebreaker. I think it's going to be 6-5 for Ukraine.
Foxy, what about you? What do you think?
This is 6-5 all the way. These two teams are basically dead even in skill. If I'm being honest, these two teams have, or these two countries have had a rivalry for a while at this point, leading back to like the first 6EC where they kind of started it. And they're currently on a 3 wins to 3 wins record against each other, both teams having 3. So this is kind of a decider match for them, as a lot of these players have ranked up a lot of their main core, and these two teams have been at war, and because of that, because of how insanely close these teams are, this is going to be a fun match. I think both teams have a chance to win. If I'm just putting Ukraine purely thanks to me thinking the Philoxenia is just barely better than Poland's carry, which I believe is like Krituba or Tian, one of the two, mostly Krituba. So I just think that's going to be the deciding factor, but I can see this match going to Poland's favor. I know Poland lost earlier in the tournament to Canada, but as we saw, Canada is an insanely strong roster, especially against the Philippines. So I'm not sure on this match. It could go either way, but I think Ukraine just has that little bit more consistency overall and can take this, but it's a 50-50. These two teams are dead even for me.
The more I hear these opinions from both of you, the more I look at these two rosters and I think, damn, Ukraine's peaks are so much more diverse, or Ukraine's peaks and dips are so much more diverse than Team Poland. Both of these teams, I think, are very equal. I think you're right in saying that they're equal in terms of skill, but I think that's only if you're taking the average skill of the entire roster. I think the Ukrainian roster is very, very lopsided. Probably one of the most lopsided teams this year in this year's World Cup. In similar to fashion to what we saw from Team Kazakhstan, Team Ukraine has a hyper carry in Philoxenia, arguably top 3 in the tournament right now. And then you have, and then Ukraine has their other players covering your various specialist skill sets. You have Sasing on the easies, you have Zersh on the hard rocks, you have Wannabe Ritsu as like the secondary carry of Team Ukraine. But other than that, what do the support of Ukraine really bring to the table? And it's in stark contrast to what you see from Team Poland, where all 8 players are, known players in the community. They're known players in the scene. Everybody on Team Poland is equal. And I think that's the main point of contention for both of these rosters. The outcome of this match is solely hinged on whether Poland can fill a roster better than Team Ukraine. Because for what it's worth, Philoxenia and Wannabe Ritsu can come in for every single map, but if the support is not there and Poland is able to match up to that support, not just match up to that support, if they can match up to the support, they will have a full roster. Poland is extremely adaptable roster, but they're only capped by the SR. In the past, we've seen Poland absolutely demolish, albeit with Kazja in 6WC 2023. A lot of that roster is returning with Poland with a bunch of new faces such as Tiending and Kurtuba. But my point still stands. Whether Poland gets SR capped at the semifinals round will be the key decider of this matchup. If Poland isn't capped, I think Team Ukraine will lose out. They'll lose the SR game earlier, or at least the support from Team Ukraine will lose out earlier, which makes me believe that that this could, of course, be a close match. But at the same time, I've been a doubter. I think Poland has really been falling a bit short as the rounds go on. The Australia match was very, very close, and for that reason, despite the fact that Team Ukraine did lose 6-0 to Team Indonesia, that I think is a combination of Team Indonesia being cracked and mental diff. So I'm still gonna go for Team Ukraine in my predictions, but holy crap, super lengthy response. That was what I was thinking throughout the entire time.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, hearing like SR cap wise, I don't think Poland's gonna have
Really?
Yeah, because like, okay, hear me out. This is mostly coming from a tournament that happened in, I believe it was like February. That the Poland roster, 4 of their players, I think was Kurtuba, Itness, Quinty, and Xabe. I don't remember. No, it was Olqui, not Xabe. Anyway, 3 players. In grand finals, they averaged 600k on 5.8 stars, so they definitely have the skill cap for this pool. especially players like Quenti and Krituba who have been going completely insane in tournaments, especially Quenti, who was one of the carries for their 6WC3 roster.
True.
So with that, I am like kind of actually inclined to change my prediction to
Now that you
5-6
mentioned that,
for
Foxy, yeah,
Poland.
no. Yeah,
Like,
no, I'm
just
changing as
because of
well.
those three people, and then Tian as well. Like, if you've
Hard
been
rock.
around tourney scene for a little bit, you know BDC as well, where Tian got third place with Airings, and they
Yep.
played insane there. That was Duo's tourney. They played everything and got like 500k average until Grands. So this team can absolutely SR cap Ukraine, honestly.
Yeah.
I
Timber, what
think
about
it's
you, man?
just, I think this is just going to be very close. I'll keep it at 6-5 for Ukraine just so we have like some diversity, but it's. I just think these two teams are very similar, albeit in different skill sets or skillings. If Ukraine just has a good day and just throws out the mental block that they had from the Indonesia match, they can have a very good match against Poland.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, it's I said it already. Like, if Poland doesn't get skill capped on semifinals, this is Poland's game to take. I don't think I have a doubt in my mind about that. But at the same time, Philoxenia is really scary, man. Philoxenia is really, really scary. I think any matchup going against Philoxenia is going to be a tough one. So that's my prediction put in. Foxy, you can close this off, I guess.
Yeah, I think this is kind of just. I don't think we can really agree on who wins this match. I think we're all kind of 50-50, with
Yeah.
me and Gami just slightly
Please
leaning
go to
towards
tiebreaker.
Poland. But
Please, please.
yeah, no, we hope for
Please.
tiebreaker. This is the best chance in the tournament so far. Please, there's not been one.
I
Especially
think this round
sad
has
with
the
my
most
custom.
chances. I think this round has the most chances of going to tiebreaker, but
Yeah.
watch it just all go 6-4.
Yeah. No, no,
Please,
no. Okay,
no.
let's move on. Let's move on. Let's move on. Let's
Yeah,
move on.
moving on to ID 52, we have Mexico, China, and I'm gonna let Gami take this one away. This is gonna be a fun one as well.
Oh, Mexico versus China. Two countries that are known for how ambiguous their roster is. Frankly speaking, I have no clue what Team Mexico is. I know more about China because of 6APC. And from what I know about this Chinese roster, it's a lot weaker than the roster could have been. I think they lost core players in ICMI, the minor league, falling Sprite due to no flag changes this iteration. And so for that reason, China's roster has been severely weakened. But at the same time, I think this matchup is going to be very interesting just because of the binary tension between both of these rosters. You look at their quarterfinal scores, and it is almost dead even in terms of overlapping matches. You look at Hard Rock 3, Hard Rock 1 in favor of Team China, and then No Mod 2, 3, and DT2 in favor of Team Mexico. And yeah, it's honestly very hard to predict who will come out on top. And a lot of my prediction, I believe, is going to come from just the fact that I don't know enough about Team Mexico to really doubt them or to really doubt their seedings. I think the one player I do know quite a bit about is Heidi Esse, who is, without a doubt, I think the strongest player in this matchup. And so for that reason, I'm looking at the name power when it comes to this matchup. And I think it could be close. I see a 6-3 in favor of Team Mexico. Foxy, what about you?
I mean, this is a hard one because the thing is with Mexico, we talked about this a little on last week's stream with Maiji and Philoxen, but they are heavily boosted in qualifiers by their DT. Like they got insanely boosted. Yeah, they got insanely boosted just by their speed, and that is kind of what they've been relying on a lot of the tournament. Obviously, there's still a good roster on other skill sets. Like, no doubt, Seed 6 is still a massive accomplishment. But even then, just the fact that like they've been kind of struggling on anything that's not been DT or mechanics, like you can look at the Hidden 2. 11th is not the best against a team like China. And also something about China. China has an incredibly experienced player in Mike who has been in, I believe, every 6WC besides 6WC4 thanks to the not allowing top 3 placement players. So they have a lot of experience on the side of China. They have some players, newcomers as well, like Chaco and Crepe, who mentioned last week were insanely good so far. And they did pull through in quarterfinals as well in the Hong Kong and India matches. So I can honestly see either side winning this, but I think whichever side wins it in a very dominant fashion. It's like either Mexico sweeps or China sweeps. It's one of those two options. Well, not completely sweeps, but you know what I mean. Kind of just like
I
6-2 for
don't
either
know.
team. And honestly, I am inclined to give this one to China just purely because of the experience and the fact that they have some players that have a higher skill cap than Mexico overall.
Yeah, and this could also be a really close match. The seeding is indeed a little bit skewed because of that DT, where Mexico actually got like 4.3 million, almost 4 million DT2 in qualifiers, which definitely inflated their seed a little bit. And I also think Mexico does have a chance to actually lose this match to China just because of how all-rounded China's roster seems to be throughout this tournament. Definitely, Mexico does have just the mechanics advantage on the nomads. Hidden's Hard Rocks and the DTs are just a little bit of a doubtful for me because of how. Yeah, it's just Mexico has some specific players that actually like can play it, but then the fill is just not there sometimes. And China just has a very well-rounded team that are just a little bit lower in scoring, but still very consistent. So I found this very hard as well. I just think China does have a little bit more of an edge. I'll go 6-4 to China.
Yeah. Okay, the more Foxy talks about this, the more inclined I am to believe in China's victory. I'm not gonna cast a vote here personally, but I think just from what Foxy said, perhaps going into the later rounds, China, the third player syndrome or third or fourth player syndrome coming in from Team Mexico might begin to be very, very pronounced. And for that reason, I'm more inclined to go for a China victory. But how far Mexico goes in terms of this, I don't know, because it heavily. I think they're definitely going to get like 1 or 2 points just by nature of what they have on their DTs. But just how many points they win after that is an enigma to me. So I'm going to hold my vote here. I'm not too sure. I think we can move on though. I think both of you guys down with China's victory. I'm inclined to believe that as well. So yeah, that's all. That's nothing more from me.
Yeah, just kind of agreeing on like 6-3 then, kind of just average. Yeah, I think that's possible. Mexico
I
can
think
win
it's
like no
possible.
more 2 DTs, whatever's open.
Yeah, definitely because of the bans, of course. There's just definitely one DT gonna get banned. The other two is gonna get picked. So there's at
But
least
then
like
you have the
2 or 3
speed, right?
maps that they're gonna be at. Yeah. Well, they're gonna protect one, and it's gonna be banned one. So
Okay.
it's definitely 2 points, but I don't know if they are able to get any others. Maybe number 2 or number 3, like they did in the quarterfinals, because their scores
Yeah.
on the map was just really good. So let's see how they do.
Yeah. I think we can move
Yeah.
on.
Moving on to the potentials this week. These do include every potential that we have. So starting off with the first potential, we have Taiwan against Canada, assuming both teams manage to win their matches. And this is another insanely close one that I have no idea about.
I believe.
Both, like, okay, Gammy, take this one.
I believe in the past we've seen Singapore go up against Team Canada in the losers bracket, and it was 6-5. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I wholeheartedly believe. I think this is a complete bias for me, but I've been a D1 believer in Taiwan since the very beginning for them to make for them to make the run of their 6WC career, and I think Canada probably is going to be the toughest match apart from Team Russia. Definitely the toughest match that they're gonna face this round. But at the end of the day, I think the intelligence from Taiwan is the defining factor for me. I think both of these rosters very close, but it's sort of akin to what we saw from the Ukraine Poland syndrome, where I think Taiwan is a lot more well-rounded on their skill sets as compared to Canada, or at least the skill level from the Taiwanese roster is a lot more level as compared to Team Canada. And for that reason, I think it can swing either way. I don't necessarily think that Canada would get third or fourth player syndrome this time, or at least this round. I also, but I for sure see Taiwan having a lot more sort of a lot more stable picks. I'm looking at your free mods from Taiwan, always a safe bet. Looking at all your control picks and hidden picks coming in from Taiwan that have been their go-tos this tournament. But overall, I think what Taiwan has in this matchup is mentality. They have their captain in What the Hell, bro. Incredible captain. I don't think I've been as impressed as I have been seeing that matchup against Team Russia, which, although they lost, I think could have just been boiled down to a coin flip at the end of the day. I think this is a close match, yes, but it could swing either way, and I want to root for Taiwan. Like, I think Canada can win. I want to root for Taiwan. That's my verdict.
I also think this is going to be a little bit of a closer match. I do think Taiwan, as you said, has the edge in this match. Definitely because of just a specific thing with like their team just being a little bit better with the hidden, with the free mod, with also some of the hard rock maps that are just a little bit more of a coin flip in terms of can they play it or not. I think is going to be 6 as well for Taiwan, but I just don't know what Canada can do. It might even go to Canada if they have a good day after their first match in the against Kazakhstan. I have no clue what their score could be at the end of this match.
So I'm trying to think here, and like Taiwan is a good roster on just anything they play. And the thing is, something we've mentioned about Taiwan is that they have Murarachi, who's a really good easy player. But like in this matchup, specifically in this one matchup, I don't think there's any other. You have Nixie. And Nixie is up there as the best reading easy player in the tournament. Arguably best on reading overall. There's arguments to be made there with some players, but still. So the gimmick in this match is gonna be a close one. I know Herald and Kaidori and Falba also love their gimmick, which like those three are their strongest players by far, especially Herald, Kaidori. So that makes me think Canada can actually put up one hell of a fight. And like with their mechanics, especially, I mean, the Herald Kaidori have been mentioned before on this stream when we talked about their match against Kazakhstan. But like their mechanics are insanely good overall. Like they're just a very good team. I think Herald has been getting lowest hard unironically thanks to his insane skill cap. So with that, I don't want to make a crazy call. I don't think Canada will win the match. As much as I would love for them to win, because it's a very close matchup, I think Taiwan wins this in probably 6-5, but it's very close, and I can see Canada actually taking this.
Wait, really? I mean, you were talking you were talking up, the carries from Team Canada, and at some point I was just like, I was kind of skeptic about the Taiwan placement. I think, oh my gosh, it's so hard, Foxy. This is really so hard. This is really so hard because you mentioned the leveling of the playing field when it comes to the gimmicks, and for what it's worth, I'm starting to see some cracks in Taiwan. I know Taiwan through and through have been known as a pretty weak mechanics team, and I look at the amount of mechanics pools as compared to the amount the amount of mechanics maps, pardon me, compared to the amount of control maps in the pool. I think that quite the abuse coming in from Team Canada going into this next match is gonna be pretty damn pronounced. I'm looking in particular, DT3 is probably is swing DT3, I believe, this round. So it is a skill cap map. DT2 as well, could definitely see it going to Team Canada. And I can't help but feel that Canada going into this matchup has more stable picks than Team Taiwan. And as far as free points go, I mean, Fanboy Nixie is looking to counteract as much of Team Taiwan's. I think Rich Liu loves going easy on free mods. Nixie is looking to cancel out as much of that Taiwanese advantage when it comes to the free mods. And so, for that reason, I think I've sort of talked myself into being a Canada supporter. Foxy, I don't know, man. Timper, what about you? Do you have any closing words?
I think this match is a match that could go either way. We are just more on the side of Taiwan at the start. It's just so close. Definitely going to the later stages of this tournament. These matches could go either way, with both teams just having the rosters and the players to fill out most of the maps and just having a chance, even though it could be a pick from the opposing team. I just think either match could go either way. Definitely, if you go into the potentials and the last finals or semifinals matches.
I'm thinking, hold on, does Canada actually win this?
Ah man,
I just
see, right,
hard. No,
you
this
feel
is-
it, right? That's what I'm saying. Like Canada has consistent picks. Canada has consistent picks. Taiwan has clear weaknesses. They have clear weaknesses in their Nomad 2. They have weaknesses in their speed. They have weaknesses in their hard rock. Like, these are established things coming in from Team Taiwan going into this matchup. Meanwhile, what does Canada have? Canada has security. They have the speed picks. Harold finally is scaling with the SR. And not even that, Taiwan's advantage in their, easy players, Rich Liu and Murachi, is sort of being matched by Nixie. So, I want to be a Taiwan supporter, but Canada looks so scary, dude. Canada looks so scary.
think even though the seed difference is big, it could still be a close match, and I just think it could go either way. And I think we should move on before we're going
Yeah,
to start.
yeah.
We're
We've
gonna
talked
be here
about
for a while. We're gonna be here for a while.
Yeah, this is just a close match. I think we just agree on a 50-50 coin flip on who wins tiebreaker at this point. I don't think
Yeah.
who I like. It's just about that.
I think Kribati wins this matchup. Moving on. Let's
True.
move on to our next one.
Moving on to Taiwan, Kazakhstan here, which very
Yeah,
close.
alright.
One. I think this one is a lot more one-sided than the Canada match was, as Kazakhstan a weaker roster overall. Yeah, I think Taiwan just 6-4, 6-3, something like that. I can see Kazakhstan maybe snagging a few points on the mechanics maps, thanks to, as we mentioned, Taiwan just struggling on mechanics. But it's just a clear Taiwan victory in probably 6-3.
I think this could be close actually. No, kind of getting W tapped by myself here. Having a stroke in the commentary booth, you love to see it. The thing about Taiwan is that they have a lot of pronounced weaknesses, right? The speed will continue to be a problem till the day that Taiwan gets knocked out. I mean, the hard rock's always going to be a problem, and for that reason, I think Kazakhstan can shoot some clear points onto the board. So I'm gonna give it like 6-3 at the minimum. I think 6-4 is doable though.
I definitely think 6-4 could be doable. I just don't know if Kazakhstan has the skill sets to fill out the later picks again. Just Kazakhstan is just limited into the later stages of a match. It's just very hard for them to fill out the less comfortable picks to get a point from them. And I just think it's gonna be 6-3 for Taiwan here.
I think we can move on.
Yeah, 6-3 is a safe bet. Let's be honest, we don't think this match is gonna happen too much, but yeah, 6-3 if it does. Moving on to our next potential, which is Brazil against Canada, and this is another like slightly interesting one. We've talked about this, but I think Brazil's getting still capped, and on the other side, oh, okay.
It's not happening. It's not happening. It's not happening. It's not happening.
But yeah, I think just Brazil gets skill capped, and on the other side you have Herald who's getting unlocked on the other hand, so I'm gonna be mean, but it has to be done. I think this is the first predicted sweep of this round, honestly.
I doubt that it's gonna be a sweep though. Like, I think definitely each team has a protect that they can win. Definitely in this stage of the tournament, each team would have a map that they can win.
Canada's kind of bad at hitting.
True, yeah.
that's one, but I just think every team would have a map that they can win at this stage of the tournament. Because you're just so far in the tournament, you would have a roster that is comfortable on at least one of the maps that you can pick. And that map can you protect, and then you're guaranteed to at least have 1 point. I think Brazil might have a chance of getting a second point if they just do good. But I do think Canada is going to win here.
Yeah, let's move on to the next default as well. I mean, no, the next potential as well. Let's just get that out of the way.
Yeah, this one's actually probably another close one. Like, this is kind of on par with what we were talking about with Taiwan, Canada, honestly. Because, like, again, Brazil has more players on it that are actually, like, comfortable playing. Because, as we mentioned with Kazakhstan, they kind of just have airings, and then later into the match, once we get past to, like, 6 picks done, they kind of start to fall apart. But Brazil, on the other hand, is just a very consistent team. I mean, you look at their scores, they really only did bad on the Freema 2 and Hidden 2, and that's kind of it. Otherwise, they were actually, like, really good on quarterfinals. So, I mean, I think that Brazil... I think Brazil, honestly, despite being the lower seed, wins this just because they can fill more picks better than Kazakhstan, honestly. But again, this would probably be on the same level of close as Canada-Taiwan in my eyes.
Yeah.
Nothing much for me to add. I just think that okay, no. I think this is I'm kind of in agreement with Foxy here. No, I thought about it before. I thought Brazil was gonna get swept because no way they're beating Aerongs, but at the same time, being able to fill a roster is pretty important. And no, I'm feeling it. No, I'm gonna be confident. I'm gonna be confident. I think Kazakhstan skills better. I'm sorry. I think Kazakhstan skills better. I look at their scores and I think Brazil wins this, but I think where guaranteed points are concerned, Kazakhstan probably has more security on them. What about you, Timper?
I think it's also going to be a close match. It completely depends on how skill capped Brazil is going to be on this pool. If they're skill capped, it's going to be done, and Kazakhstan has a pretty easy victory. If they're not, it could go very far into the match. It could go very close at the ending.
Yeah.
Anyways, let's just move on to our next one, I think.
Yeah, moving
These Brazil
on.
matches are pretty unlikely.
Yeah. Moving on to ID 54, we move on to our other teams, starting off with Mexico-Ukraine, which actually, seed 6-7, Ukraine has one hell of a bracket. I hate you so much.
I don't know what you're expecting.
True. Anyway, Ukraine having to play seed 8 into seed 6, which is definitely a hard bracket, and I feel like that might actually impact their mental a little bit. Purely because going against two teams that are virtually equal to you is insanely hard in one weekend. But again, like, we've seen these teams, they've both been playing very well. I will say, Mexico did take 2 points against the US, while the Ukraine took 0 against Indonesia, and I believe US and Indonesia, a matchup that we'll see later, to be near even, to be very close to each other in terms of skill level. We'll get into that later, but with that, Mexico, in my opinion, is a little stronger. But we're once again on that who can carry better, because it is Hyde essay against Philoxenia plus their supports, and it highly depends on who gets the better supports. So this is probably another, like, 6-4. I think Ukraine takes this one, because Mexico faces the same issues as we've been talking about with Kazakhstan, but it could go either way.
No, I think the carries of Team Ukraine beat out the carries of Team Mexico, and for that reason, I'm giving it to Ukraine with this one. Nothing more from me.
Yeah, I also am going to go with the same score, actually. I think Ukraine, if they do get over that 6-0 loss, they can definitely win this. Because a 6-0 loss is just very mentally taxing. It just feels like you have nothing else you can do, and it could go into the next stage of the tournament. I just hope that they don't let it get to them. Just refresh, reset yourself, because these matches are really close, and there is definitely a chance for Ukraine to win. Definitely on this one, where Indonesia and the United States are very close, and I just think that Ukraine has a little bit of an edge over Mexico, even though the seeding doesn't say so.
Nothing. I think we can move on to the next D4. I think this is the next Mexico potential.
Yeah, it is Mexico, Poland, and I'm gonna let Timper speak on this one first.
For me, I think this is actually probably a copy of the last match, but I think Mexico has the edge over Poland on this. Even though the scores from quarterfinals doesn't say so, there's a chance of Poland being very good, definitely with their performance in the quarterfinals. I just think Poland might have the edge as well. It could go coin flip for me. I did say on my initial prediction, I did say 6-5 to Mexico, so I'll just go with this.
I think it's torn for you, Tipper, but in my eyes, I think Poland is a crushing matchup to Team Mexico. If you thought Poland versus Ukraine was like a matchup of carries versus well-roundedness, Poland versus Mexico just exacerbates the difference tenfold, in my opinion. I think Poland going into this matchup, if what it said was true, and I think the overall consensus is Poland beats Ukraine, Poland is not going to ever fail to fill out a roster. And that's just not going to, and that's just bound to happen with a team like Mexico. So for that reason, I think this is crushing 6-2 to 4, in my opinion.
Okay, I can see where both of you are coming from, and I am torn in between. Oh god. Um so I can see where Timper's coming from, where like Mexico overall can like very easily abuse Poland's weaknesses. Because Poland is a very well-rounded team, as Gary mentioned. They have basically no bad maps per se. But the thing is, again, some of their players don't have that much experience. I know a lot of the Mexican players have a lot of experience from their own national tournaments. So I feel like Mexico might be slightly more experienced. I know Poland has a couple of people that have played every 6WC. I've mentioned this before, but Itanas has played every single one besides the fourth one because of their second place in the 6WC3. I know Xabe, I believe, has been playing every 6WC. I don't think he's been on the Major League teams every single time. I don't think he was on 6WC 1 and 4. 4 because of the because of the second place, but 6WC 1 just because of him not getting on the team and being minor league. So again, very experienced players on the side of Poland. But they do also have a lot of newbies in Kuba, Propelli, and Ajik. So I am torn. I don't know. I feel like this is either Poland sweeps or it's a tiebreaker match. It's either one of those two. I can see both. But it highly just depends on what Poland is feeling like that day. Honestly, I feel like that's all that's here to say.
It's just either a coin flip for tiebreaker match or sweep.
Yeah.
Let's move on.
Yeah, moving on to the next
Next
one.
group.
China, Ukraine. Gammy, have fun with this one.
Oh, I hope Ukraine loses. I hope Ukraine. I don't want to say, man. I think this is gonna be 0-6 in favor of China. Okay, anyways. Realistically speaking, this China versus Ukraine match is once again pretty similar to the China versus Mexico match. However, I frankly think that Ukraine's weakness when it comes to lopsidedness is a lot less egregious than what we saw from Team Mexico. I think Philoxenia, for one, is on par, if not, I think stronger than Heidi SA. And Ukraine has support. I mean, I already said it before, their specialist core is pretty damn strong. They have Sasing on Easy Search, on Hard Rock, and Wannabe Ritsu as the secondary carry. So for that reason, I think Philoxenia and Wannabe Ritsu are just gonna give Ukraine that additional oomph when it comes to this matchup, China versus Ukraine. And for that reason, I think Ukraine wins this. How many points China puts on the board, however, I think that's gonna be up for the question. So I think Foxy, do you have anything to add?
I actually do.
All right.
Yeah, no, I'm going to 6-4 for China, and let me explain. Okay. No, let me explain.
Okay.
This is an incredibly similar case to Poland against Ukraine. Because, again, China has players like Mike who have been around since 6WC1. They have a lot of other like very experienced or just incredibly good players. And again, something that I mentioned with Mexico, they have so many national tourneys, and genuinely China, I believe, is the biggest national tournament scene outside of probably the United States. So with that in mind, and with the fact that China kind of fills things better than Ukraine, China isn't that lopsided towards carries. Yeah, they have Chaku, Creep, and Mike who do carry, but everyone else, we've seen Abathid, Rui, and Sourflower all have their moments. Yuan and Shuai have been insanely good fills as well. They've not been super carries on anything as far as I remember, but they've been very good as well, just to put in some scores. Against Ukraine, who's kind of reliant on Philoxenia performing. We saw this last week, but when Philoxenia stopped performing on the level that they're expected to, Ukraine kind of just fumbled in a match that me, Philoxen, and Maichi were actually expecting them to win. So with that, I genuinely think that China can actually take this match in a 6-4. Probably tiebreaker. It's highly likely that's 6-5. And I am not putting it out of the question that Ukraine can win this matchup. It's highly possible. But I personally just think that China's slightly better.
I think Ukraine might have the edge on this. It just once again depends on how they come back from that 6-0. If Philoxenia does perform again, it's going to be a close match. It's just so hard to say how they will come back from a 6-0 loss because we have not seen them lose this bad, or at least not have such a close match, which could also impact a team. So it just really depends on how that roster processes that loss. I did think 6-5 for China though, in the end,
Man.
because I just think it's gonna be very close.
Yeah, no, I have nothing to say. I think we can move on. I think this is torn.
Yeah, again, one of those matches where it's just like kind of a coin flip. But moving on to the closest match of this entire weekend, probably one of the closest ones, China against Poland. If I may, this is one thing we've mentioned for Mexico and Ukraine is that they heavily rely on their carries, and it's probably why they're going to lose. While these two teams don't. They have well-rounded rosters everywhere, so these teams don't really struggle on putting up a four-man team on anything. That prediction's crazy for the record. Yeah. But like, but what I mean is, right, these teams both can slot 4 players on a team, on a map. Every single one of these maps, they have 4 people for. Maybe China's struggling very slightly on like more of the gimmicky stuff. You can see that like Nomad 4, the hiddens kind of they struggle on. But they have, like, this is not even an experience gap. Like, as I mentioned, China and Poland have players that have been around since the first 6WC. They have well-rounded rosters. Like, in my opinion, this is another one of those, like, 6-5 matches. And it's kind of just who has a better day, who wins. I think Poland is slightly favored overall, but I really don't think that this is going to be a match that's just going to be written off as a, like, sweep for Poland, or just anything that's not close. I highly doubt it's not going to be close, at least to some degree.
Timpo, what about you?
I also think 5-6 for Poland. Just as Foxy said, it really depends on how Poland is feeling on that day. If they perform right at the end of the match, or not. These scores on that you can see are also just very close on some of them. Definitely Node 1, Node 4 actually is only 80k difference, even though it's a 4 placement difference. It just really depends on how both teams are going to be playing on that day.
I'll be real. This ain't happening cheap. Wait. My whole interpretation of this matchup is Poland, for all intents and purposes, is a strict upgrade of Team China. Like, they can fill a roster, they're very well rounded, yada yada yada, equivalent in terms of mental gap. So what does Poland have at the end of the day? They have consistency, they have skill cap. If we've established that Poland beats Team, I believe, Ukraine in their first matchup, I don't think this Chinese roster is even a challenge towards Team Poland, especially if, you know, they are comfortable on the SR. especially if they scale better. I mean, you look at the quarterfinals performances. I don't see a world where China is able to sort of cut Poland out on some points here and there, because at the end of the day, Poland is just, they have everything. You don't. I've always held this belief about Team Poland. You don't beat Poland by exploiting weaknesses. You beat them by being better. And I frankly do not think that China has enough firepower to topple Poland in this matchup. That's my verdict.
Yeah,
Speak
I
for
definitely
me.
think Poland is going to win. I definitely think Poland is going to win. If China gets to 5 points, depends on how they play on that day. It could definitely go lower. But I 100% think Poland will be able to win this match.
Yeah, I don't think it's a question of if Poland wins. Like, I think we're all in agreement that Poland wins this matchup regardless of what happens. It's kind of just how many points China can take, and with both teams being so well-rounded, I can agree with Gami that Poland is basically just strictly better China, but China is also coming out of like an easier matchup than Poland. Being completely real, I think Mexico is just a worse Ukraine overall. So it's kind of just like how Poland is feeling, and if Poland manages to get like a very clean victory against Ukraine, Poland wins this, like possibly even 6-0. This could very well be a sweep. But if Poland struggles heavily and China puts up some really good scores in the Mexico match, I can also just see this going 6-5. This is just it's a sweep or a close match. It can be anything, really, just based on mental cap, honestly.
But Poland wins.
Yeah,
Right.
Poland wins. That's guaranteed.
Okay.
100%.
I think we can move on to our winner's side matches.
Yeah, winner's side. This one's gonna be fun. Starting off with a close one.
Nope. Yep. A very close one. Yep.
Gammy, you wanna take this?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
no, explain.
Back it up,
Explain.
Back it up. I'm sorry. Like, Philippines has their carry player Zix, right? And so for that reason, no, look, Philippines is like, if Poland is a strict upgrade of China, Philippines is a strict upgrade of Poland. I mean, the Filipino roster this year is very akin to the Brazilian roster from last year, even without Zix. And you look at the quarterfinal. Oh my goodness! You look at the quarterfinal performances, and I am not convinced. I am not convinced that Philippines versus Russia is gonna be anything other than a 6-0 or 6-1. I want to see Philippines lose as much as possible, but god damn! I mean, Russia has been having a very rocky climb to this point. 4-6 is not the kind of about 4-6 compared to the Philippines. Well, I guess 6-4, but although on paper, it looks very close. But Russia has fallen in the past. You look at that 2-5 against Singapore. Yes, of course, Singapore multi-account, yada yada yada. But at the end of the day, Russia is very prone to mental boom, and for that reason, I think there's just a lot of traits that's downplaying Russia in this matchup. And Philippines, you don't want to have that kind of mental disclarity when you're against the strongest roster. Probably the strongest roster in 6WC history in terms of context. Like, that's not what you want to happen. And I see either 6-0 or 6-1.
I think it's going to be 6-1 because, just like I said earlier on, that every team probably has one map that they're comfortable on, that they're having a higher chance of winning with the Protect. I think it's going to be 6-1 or 6-2 might happen. I doubt it. But it's definitely Philippines that's gonna win here.
All right,
that's diabolical.
I'm the one making the crazy call. Yeah, no, I'm the one making the crazy call. I'm calling 6-3, and this is purely my logic behind this. I've pointed this out last week with the Indonesia match against Ukraine. I was wrong because of Philoxenia underperforming, but my point from that stands. Australia takes a point. Canada goes 6-4. I think if Canada and Russia played against each other, I think Russia would unironically probably win. Just like very barely, both teams against really close, but Russia just an insane mechanics roster.
Okay.
And my pure logic on this is, I just think that Russia is better than Canada, but the SR being slightly higher makes me think that they're not going to be able to do that great. So I'm putting 6-3, basically the same score as what Canada got. It's just higher SR, so Philippines is a little better overall. And that's kind of my logic for this. I don't think it ever goes above 6-3 though. It always goes below that at best or at worst.
I like how the crazy call from Foxy is a 6-3. It's not even
Yeah,
like a
no,
Russia
sorry, but it's
victory.
the
Like,
Philippines, bro.
this
It's
is
the
fucked
Philippines.
up.
Yeah.
Like low SR has passed. It is too late. Every point against Philippines is a fight for survival. And yeah, no, we can just move on. I think Philippines is Philippines, and they will always be Philippines.
Yeah,
Oh
this
man.
is just
What-
Philippines. Philippines is just crazy this year. It's actually crazy in terms of how good they are, how consistent they are. Um, they can play almost everything,
As a
basically
seven-man roster.
everything,
As a
and
seven-man
it
roster as well.
and it is a 7-man roster, so it's just insane.
Mhm.
And I 100% think Philippines will win. I just think Russia will have one map that they can definitely win. Just has to be their protect.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I want to
fair.
see Russia do well, but it's tough, man. Let's move
Yeah.
on.
Moving on to the actual closest match, and this one's gonna be a very fun one to talk about, as unlike this one, it is Indonesia United States, and I actually have no idea what to say for this match. There is so much to say about both teams. I mean, you have Xerelia Varial as the carries on Indonesia, but you have a lot of those older players like Imar or Syntac there, who have been around for years. You have MK, who's been performing insanely well. Izaris Okariemu as well, really good fill. Swasti too. And then on the other side, the United States, they don't have as much history. A lot of these players are somewhat newer to the tournament scene. But you have some insane experience in players like Light/Sparkle, whatever you call him, Delete and Cuckoo, who have been around for years at this point, especially Delete and Light, who have been around since 2022 and 2023 respectively, with Delete taking a prolonged break, but still. But like even then, Delete has been like arguably like the third best player after Xerelia and I guess like before Zeus got restricted. But like even then, like the Delete's been insane. Sparkle Light has got a ninth in their tryouts twice, missing out on Major League. And then obviously the rest of the United States, Redacted, the team last year, but performing insanely well over the last year. Creep, Callan, and Kiwi, all somewhat newer to the tournament scene, but all insanely good. Kiwi getting top 3 in his first 3 tournaments. Callan Jack being arguably the second best player on the team right after the lead, and Creep has also some like one of the newest players, but has been insane too. So, I don't actually know who to call this match to. If I could, this would be 6-6. I think these teams are dead even in skill just because Xerelia Variel are the hyper carries that you're looking at with Syntact and Imar as those kinds of support. But the United States doesn't have a weakness, and that's my main logic for this. They don't have a weak spot. Every single one of their players can fill something. They fill everything insanely well, and their core of what I believe is Light, Delete, Callan Jack, and for the most part, probably Redacted now, as Kiwi is starting to fall off with SR. I'm gonna be honest, I think just the slightest bit of consistency and experience that United States has gives them the point, gives them the last point that they need. But honestly, this can go either way. I really have no idea for this one.
Yeah,
I
I was
want
also
go for it. Go for it.
torn.
Timber.
Yeah, I was also very torn. Um, these two teams are just so incredibly equal in both skill and just their overall roster. It's just indeed that the experience that United States just has. That I also think it is gonna be a little bit more on the side of the United States. Also, let me just out of context, both of these teams have a Umamusume collab. I
Oh
just
my
think that the team
days!
spirit.
Oh my days! Oh my days! Hashire, Hashire.
I just think their team spirit is more on the side of the United States because there's one person missing on the side of Indonesia.
Mm.
But also that just is like, I just think that the United States has a little bit more of an experience gain, or like advantage, because there's just more tournaments in the United States as well. Indonesia does have a chance with the two carries that they do have, if they have a good day and they can actually FC a lot, or like at least get high scores on maps, they might outscore United States if they do have a format roster that are just consistent. But I just think that United States just has a little bit of an edge, just a tiny bit over Indonesia, but it could go either way.
Okay. I'm if Philippines was the epitome of like roster diversity and roster balance, Indonesia is the epitome of hard carries to the extreme. Indonesia as a roster is a super powered version of Mexico, of Ukraine. All these countries that rely on, a certain group of carries or a certain player or two of carries to push them over the edge. Indonesia is epitomizes this concept with Zerilia and Varial. I think these two players, arguably, easily top 10, arguably top 5 in the entire tournament. And going into this matchup, I think that it is going to be heavily dependent on external factors. I'm looking at the United States right now with the entire roster. It's a relatively balanced roster across the board. They have some carries, you have some power concentrated in players such as Kalinjak and Delete. So that's probably going to give you a huge boon towards your mechanic skill sets, towards your hard rock skill sets. On the flip side of Indonesia, I think at this SR, we might begin to see their sporting cast slowly fall off. But at the same time, Zerilia is just a hydrogen bomb in any matchup, regardless. Like, he is the OU, he is the number one meta game threat in every single matchup that Indonesia faces. And for that reason, Indonesia, I think, just narrowly beats out the United States. Where do I think the United States reigns supreme over Team Indonesia? I think when it comes to a mindset standpoint, I think the United States is extremely strong. When it comes to roster diversity, I've already mentioned that US triumphs over Indonesia. But most importantly, I want to say, if I had to name the two countries that are known for very intelligent picks, for very good game plans, it's the US and Taiwan. The US, I'm looking at Sparkle, minor league mainstay of the United States. I believe several time podium finisher of minor league. In fact, Foxy, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, twice getting ninth in their trial.
Yeah. Sparkle is an incredible captain, arguably one of the best captains this year. And they also have players such as Kalinjak, they have players such as Kiwi with very good understanding of the entire meta game of 6WC. For that reason, I think United States, by virtue of stronger mental and strength when it comes to their picks, intelligence or game sense when it comes to a matchup such as this one, I frankly think that the sheer firepower that Indonesia is looking to throw out this matchup is it's really going to be put to the test. I think United States 100% has the finesse that it takes in order to cut out Team Indonesia of this victory. And while I want to say that this is a 6-5 performance, a 5-6 performance in favor of the US, I don't think that if I'm a believer in US's victory, that I can say that US wins a tiebreaker. And so for that reason, I'm gonna give them 4-6. I don't think US can win a tiebreaker against Indonesia, especially against the roster that they have. But if they can cut out all the points before that tiebreaker happens, I think there's a US victory.
Yeah. I think it's like US. The thing is, right? Something to note. Is Xerelia or Delete better in terms of skill cap? Because I know both of them are insane on skill cap. The thing is, I've seen Delete play a lot in private, like outside of tournaments back then and even now. And he has been playing on around the same level as Xerelia. Same goes for Kalinjak. So my theory is United States is more well-rounded. And something else that's been happening, right?
I get it.
I think Delete has unrusted. I think Delete's gotten to the point where he's playing far better than he was 2 years ago, where he was already arguably the best player in 6 digit at that point when like Core 6-2 was happening. So purely because of that, I think United States actually went 6-4 because they don't even need to get to tiebreaker. I think they have stronger carries than Indonesia by now, just because Delete's
No.
unrusted more, unironically.
Timper, what are your thoughts? Because
I really don't really have anything to add. I just think this is going to be a very close match, which could go either way depending on how each team is feeling. It just is that close.
for balance sake, I'm gonna give the point in favor of Team Indonesia. I'm gonna give it 6-5 Team Indonesia just because in any 5-5 scenario, I disagree with you, Foxy. I think Zeridia and Variel are leagues above, or maybe not leagues above, but they're just a step higher over Challenger and Delete. I'm looking at playoffs performances, and that's the main thing playing in favor for me. I think Delete, yes, he wasn't. I believe he dropped out of playoffs, but Challenger was in playoffs, and if I think Delete is slightly stronger than Challenger, I don't think he's much stronger than Challenger, and because Challenger didn't get as far as Zeridia or Variel did in playoffs, I am more inclined to give the split decision if it comes down to tiebreaker to Indonesia. And so for representation's sake, I think this matchup is either gonna be 4-6 or 6-5. I don't think there's any other board state that this matchup
Agreed.
could go. Yeah.
Yeah, agreed on that, yeah.
But yeah, I think that's all we have.
Yeah, this has been a prediction. There's been some crazy close matches on this one.
Yeah, as I said, this is probably going
to go 4-6. Fuck.
I think that's, as I said, this is probably the closest weekend we're gonna have to date in this tournament. Yeah. Just because of how good the remaining teams are and how close they are in skill.
Yeah. You know what? Screw the actual like match predictions. Ladies and gentlemen, let's sit down and think about how many tiebreakers do we predict this week.
Zero.
That's the real thing that we're gonna predict. I predict we're gonna get 0-0.
Yeah, no,
0-0.
sorry, dude, but like this tournament is like allergic to tiebreakers. I think we're seeing 0. Everything's gonna be 6-4.
Everything's gonna be 6-4.
The second one team gets to 5 points, they win. I'm sorry.
All our tiebreakers are for minor league. So if you want to check out tiebreakers, go hit out the minor league. Go hit out the minor league so you can catch them. But yeah, I think Foxy, do you have anything else to add, Timper?
No, I think this could be a very close weekend, and I'm so ready to see all these matches and see if we could see some actual tiebreakers,
please. It would be really sad if every match we predict a tiebreaker was actually a tiebreaker after the weekend where we had a custom song.
Yeah.
TSPMO, but that's life. That's life hosting a tournament. That's why you don't host. But I think with that, there's nothing more from the commentary booth. I think we can close it off. It's been a long, grueling. How long was it? 1 hour, 15 minutes. Giving me a staunch reminder as to why I don't do these prediction streams anymore. So, with that, ladies and gentlemen, we're just about to wrap things up. My name has been Gami Cruella. Joining me in the VC was Foxy and Timper. Huge shout outs to Frown for being our streamer, as well as Perry Crayola, Timper, and Perry Crayola and William for the lovely sheet today. Thank you to everybody, our 17 viewers who are still watching up to this point. We hope that you enjoyed it as much as we did bringing it to you. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, we will be getting into probably the most pumped season or the most pumped week of matches. So I think I can speak for the entire booth that we are incredibly stoked to be here, giving you hopefully the best commentary that we can for this 6-digit World Cup semifinals round. But until then, ladies and gentlemen, my name has been Gami Cruella. You are watching another Project Hexagon stream. This has been the 6-digit World Cup 2025, and we'll see you in the next stream. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye, everyone.